Hi, everybody. My name is Grace Bubeck, and I'd like to welcome you to a series of live online conversations on life challenges. And basically, there's a first part to these conversations, which was done about a year ago, which you can find on YouTube. And the second part is revisiting those themes after a year. So today I'll be speaking with Unmani. Hi, Unmani.
Hi, Grace.
And thank you for joining us again. Unmani lost her husband and friend, Robert, about a year ago, a bit more than a year ago. And she was sharing very movingly on Facebook about her experience, about the coming together of the very human and the divine, and how does that play out? Not that she intended for that to be a teaching or anything. She just shared on Facebook. And I was very touched about that at the time. And I thought, this was this was like an edge, this edge of where the human experience meets with awareness that was worth sharing with people and worth exploring maybe more in conversation. So that was the impulse behind the first series of life challenges conversations. And the idea for the second series, for revisiting those themes, is to see what, how has this been over the period of a year? How has this played out? And how is it playing out now? So Unmani is starting us off like she did last year. And Unmani, maybe I'll just ask you, how is this for you? You're back in the place in India where you lived with Robert and your son last year, and where it all happened. How is it to be back?
Yeah, it's mixed for sure. I've now been here almost 3 months, so it's got a little easier. And when I first came back, it hit me again, very fresh again. And still, every so often, it does hit me again. This house has a lot of memories, and we chose to live here together. But also, this house has a lot of memories of my own grief, because I stayed here after Robert died for another 3 months, and that was, the hardest time, really, right at the beginning after he died. So when I first came in here, it was like I could feel my own grief, like a thick, heavy cloud almost. But I very purposefully decided to reclaim the space here, to redecorate, to make it my own, but at the same time to keep a space where I've got a photograph of Robert, and I kind of honor him there. I put some flowers, and so he has his place still. But our shared office, I decided to make into my personal creative studio where I paint and do fun things. So it's kind of, it's changed the energy of the place and made it a bit easier to be here.
Sounds to me like you're there's this ongoing encounter with the loss, and the response to it is very in the moment. I mean, it was then, and obviously a year ago, there's just a lot of very raw grief. And the house evoked that as you came back. But there's also like what I hear is there's a response that's true to what is here now, which is that he is no longer sharing the office with you. And so that has become your space, and your it's like at the same time he has his space, with the photograph and the flowers, and also there's the new life.
Yeah. I mean, at times I feel like the new life, the fresh energy of who I and Sky and my son are now, that comes in a strong wave, and it's like, yes, here we are now, and we're creating something completely fresh and new, or it's us, let's say, because I'm not trying to do anything in particular, but it seems that sometimes the wave of fresh energy comes strongly, and then other times it's just like, you fall back into as if it's just happened, and it's just as cutting and raw, as if I'm holding him in my arms once again as he's dying. And I mean, for sure, in a way, I have had to this year really take care of this woman. She, and I speak about her in that kind of as a she in a way, purposefully, because it is a paradox of personal and absolute, of course. And so I'm, as my absolute nature, I'm saying, well, as the absolute nature, I'm absolutely fine and always have been, and nothing ever happened to me. But for this woman, she went through a trauma. She was really traumatized, physically, emotionally, mentally, everything. It was a massive shock, totally out of the blue, unexpected. Within the space of 2-3 hours, from seemingly to be totally healthy, in a good mood, fine, playing some music, to dead in my arms, and full drama in that time. So processing the shock and the trauma has been, I've really been focused on doing whatever I can to nourish her, this body, and to process the whole thing. And it still goes on, because I still find myself every so often suddenly shocked. Like, what the hell happened there? How could that have happened? We were great. We were having a great time. We were a great team. We'd just got married. 4 months before he died, we got married. We'd been together for about 5 years, but we'd just had this wonderful wedding and celebrating our love. And he had just released his first album of songs that was like such a gift for him to find. He'd been writing songs his whole life, but he'd finally produced an album that he felt really proud of. 2 days before he died, he released it. So it's all crazy that could have happened. But so I've been really focusing on taking care of this woman and doing whatever she needs and of course Sky as well, my son. But you know, he was 2.5 when his dad died. Now he's nearly he's just over 3.5. It's 3 3/4. But he's really processed it much faster, apparently, as far as I can see now. He's so fine. You know, he's just in the moment. And I talk about Robert sometimes, but he, you know, he has some interest. He loves it when I play his music, but you know, he's not upset about it, or he doesn't feel like he's missing anything. But for me, it's very different. Yeah, the trauma has been.
Yeah, that brings up the place for me as I'm listening to you. You know, it brings up the place of memory. You know, it sounds like Sky, your son, somehow, you know, his memory bank is less loaded than yours. And so, you know, these ways that memories are evoked, that the fact is evoked that Robert is no longer with you. It's like, because there was such a deeply lived experience of loving connection, you know, of being with him.
Yeah.
How could that not be stored in the body and being and come up, you know, in ways for you that it won't for Sky, because, you know, there's a lot less memory for him.
Memory, and also, you know, what he didn't know any different. You know, for him now, people dying is normal. You know, it wasn't normal for me when I grew up. It was like, oh, other people died. But for him, it's normal that people close to him might die. We've talked about death a lot. It's become a reality for him. Yeah, his dad that he had a great time with. He loved his dad. You know, they had a very sweet connection. And he has some memories, but you know, people just die from Sky's perspective, and this is normal. And it is normal, actually. Right, so he, you know, he had his reaction at first in the first few weeks. It's just that it passed through much quicker. But also, yeah, for me, being with Robert, as you say, it was such a lived, loving connection, friendship, partner in life. Also, someone that I felt like, oh, we finally found each other. You know, after for both of us years of being, either being alone or being with people that somehow we both felt we were perhaps compromising ourselves, and we were sick of that. And finally, it was like, yeah, it just fit. You know? Not that we were some perfect couple or something. We had our ups and downs, but we were we were always focused on the truth. We were in love with the truth together. And so whatever challenges we went through, it was always about coming back to love, coming back to truth. Yeah, rather than winning the argument or a power game or something.
Yeah. And how
so
precious,
that's very rare.
Precious is that, you know? I mean, how many people can say that truly about their relationships, you know? Often it's like maybe one person is more devoted to truth than another, you know? And it's not that equal. It sounds to me like your devotion to truth was was there in both of you, and it just created this relationship that was deeply devoted to truth and to love, and therefore very loving.
And also we spent almost 24 hours a day together every day. And there's no one else that I would want to spend that amount of time with. And for him also, it was just easy. It was almost like being alone. So and we were very much doing our own thing, but also our own, also enmeshed somehow. So he was very much involved in his music, but he was writing songs inspired by my words, that he played at my meetings and retreats. So he was very much involved in his thing, but we found ways to do our things, our separate things together, and it was working.
And he was also supporting you in giving satsangs and retreats.
Yeah, very much, yeah. Energetically holding the space, very much holding the group, also taking care of Sky.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, it's been also a big change practically, with these kinds of practical things. First of all, childcare, juggling, getting help with that. Luckily now Sky is going to a wonderful school here. He's in the kindergarten class, but still it's just a wonderful, very natural kind of open space, and he's blossoming there, so that's really nice. That takes the weight off my mind. Also with holding the space in my meetings, I've had to find other ways to hold the space, or have other people kind of protect the space in a way. So that's been, a bit of a juggle, but I'm getting there, getting used to it and adapting. And I still play his music at the end of my meetings. His music still touches people very much. And I'm even working now on creating a second album of songs that were left on his laptop, that he was going to create into a second album. So I'm doing it for him now.
Beautiful. So I have a feeling that part of the experience of loss and grief is also about celebrating, what the precious thing that was lost, the precious person that was lost, human being that was lost. And what was shared with him, with you.
Yeah, actually I find that more recently, I mean, it's amazing how these waves of grief are processed, but I find more recently the felt sense of that preciousness, of his very human tenderness. I feel in such a raw way lately, and I guess it's something to do with at the beginning there was so much shock, and just somehow I was numbed in some way to some aspects of it, because the intensity of the very fact that it had happened was overwhelming. So over time, more and more of the reality of him seems to be coming through. And I've noticed in the last few weeks, I just will suddenly get a feeling of yeah, how precious and how tender he was, is, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, again, it touches me, like how alive he was and
Mm.
how intimate we were, that I feel he's in me.
Mm.
I still feel he's here.
Yeah.
I mean, not just on the absolute level. I mean, he is uh, who I am always, of course. We always were that, even when he was alive. And that's actually how we related to each other, also when he was alive. But somehow, energetically, and I don't have to understand this, um, yeah, somehow I still feel, in a way, energetically held by him,
Mm.
by that love.
You know, I don't have that experience of loss, but it would happen sometimes when I was still doing more like energy work sessions with people, with clients, that sometimes their loved ones who had passed would come through and would want me to pass some message on to them. I mean, I was never into channeling, but you know, it was very clear. It was like this energetic imprint, you know, or this energetic presence showed up, and it made itself known to me as, you know, this client's father or this client's mother or whatever, you know, and so I have no doubt that, you know, that the even though the body is no longer alive, you know, the energy of the person can still be there and can be
Yeah,
very present.
yeah. Well, I know that also. I mean,
Yeah.
I have no doubt about that either. And that, you know, of course, for the mind, this is something that can't be grasped. I mean, in a way, this, you know, because he's still not here. You know, he's still very much dead.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, he's also still here, and it's something that doesn't necessarily ease the pain of the loss,
Mm.
because he is gone, but
Yes.
also he's not completely gone. So it's not that love or that energy makes the pain better. In some ways, it can at times even make it worse, because there's so much love that is felt. It's like, damn, why aren't you here physically to, you know,
Yeah.
to really express it and yeah. And just talk about that word damn, it reminds me of how much anger grief includes.
Mm.
um, and that, and I mean, I feel like if we're talking about grief, loss and grief, we have to include anger. And I think, you know, this, not just in my case, I think the people who, anybody who's experienced grief and loss has also knows anger at, you know, just not even directed at anyone necessarily, although of course you can always find someone to blame if we have to, but just like, you know, why did this happen? Or not even why. It doesn't even have to make sense what you say in words, but just
Yeah.
And that anger, I mean, of course, it goes together with the pain. You know,
Mm.
it's the anger, it's the rawness of the pain, there's been times that there's so much anger that comes with the pain that it's looking for expression. It needs it. Otherwise, it's like, this woman's body will just explode.
Yes, and you don't want it to get stuck in the body. I mean,
But it can't.
It
It's just not going to be. It's like, I have to express.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've been painting quite a lot, and there's been times where I just, express a whole lot of anger on the painting, and a big piece of card, and just whack it, and it feels great. And it moves the energy, and maybe I also have a big cry, and that also moves the energy, and it somehow lifts things again. Until the next wave. It's not that things are done after one wave of anger or crying, but I've found through this whole process that having a big release helps so much. I can't say that strongly enough to anyone who's experiencing going through grief, is express as much as you possibly can. It's not that you get to the bottom of it and that it's all expressed, no, but that if you can keep expressing, it just keeps the energy moving, so that fresh energy can come in, so you can keep seeing things differently or new perspectives. Because I know for myself, when I have started to get a little bit stuck with that, not being able to express for a while, everything gets a bit stagnant and heavy, and just get a bit stuck. But if then I can find a way to release, it's all moving again.
It with grief, it does seem to be waves of it, and they may be sparked by some memory or by something you see, that used to belong to Robert, or whatever it is. It's like the grief just arrives as a wave, and I don't know how you feel about this, but for me, there's like a humility in just accepting that here's another wave, and being willing for it to have you, being willing for it to just do what it needs to do, or for you to do what you need to do, express it, have a cry,
sure.
Express
There's
the
no other way. There's no other way. I'm sure other people do find other ways, but for me, I just, I have no choice. I have to go with each wave. It's part of my absolute devotion and love for Robert, and for the truth. This is the truth of what's here.
Yes,
and
that is the truth in the moment. What else is here but that at that point?
And grief is an expression of love. Each wave is like, and I love you like this, and I love you like this, and I love you like this. Even the rage and anger, even the times when I've been on the floor in tears and snot and just a complete mess, and also the times when I feel joyful and spacious and expansive. It's like, yes, okay, and I love you like this too, and I'm okay to also not be crying all the time. Doesn't mean that I don't love you anymore, I don't miss you anymore. I'm alive, and so I have to live.
I'm wondering, Unmani, do you feel when you say that grief is an expression of love, I'm wondering, is there a human form of that love that implies attachment, that comes with attachment, and it's that attachment that causes the grief and the rage and the sense of shock and loss. There's something more embodied, and then there's love in its absolute form, which, my senses is not touched by that. How
this word attachment has received a bad rap. It's like
it doesn't have a bad rap for me, but
okay. But I just wanted to say, because that I feel that human attachment is very normal and natural. I mean, of course, I was attached to the man that I loved, and to not be attached as this woman to that man how would we have had any kind of relationship or sharing of love or sharing of our lives together without that attachment? So I feel that was that is very natural and normal, but there's the paradox of both, right? There's the love that hasn't changed since, whether he was alive or dead. I mean, that, as I said before, we both very consciously were acknowledging that, and even at times kind of jokingly we talked about, like, oh, look at these two lovebirds, like we were referring to each other, to this woman and to that man, look at these two, aren't they sweet together? In a way, like, so we were talking from that, our true nature, love, life at the absolute, at the play of these people. And okay, so one of us kind of fell away, but one person in the play, but still that seeing of it, that hasn't fallen away. That's still, that didn't change. So it's a mystery, really, this whole thing, because when we talk about love, we can talk about it on these different levels. In a way, we can say that the very human love that we shared, and we felt the physical, the emotional feeling, the connection that we felt. Then we can also talk about that energy that we were talking about, that when someone dies, there's just this, like I said, a feeling of being held in the love of him personally, in his presence or something. But then also that love that can't ever die, and it's all the same, it's all one. It's just only when we talk about it in words and the mind somehow gets involved and separates it out. But who are we to know how it all works and what it all means, really?
Well, to me, that's really, I don't know, that's just the juicy mystery of it all, and why I feel it's so important for spiritual teachers to also be willing to talk about, to share the very personal way in which their lives unfold, because people need to see that and hear that they're not just floating in the absolute, but that there is a life that's being lived, and that life comes with certain challenges, like for everybody else. And there's something just very precious, and really thank you for sharing with us about this, because I feel it really, it's so, well, in a way comforting, for people to hear that you're not just sailing through this experience unscathed, as it were. There's a human being that lives what she lives.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And actually, knowing my true nature as life itself, this doesn't save this woman from grief, or loss, or, heartbreak, but actually, it acts as like a safety net, so that grief, for example, or any of those wild emotions and sensations can be felt, knowing that nothing can ever be really lost. So even if I experience an intense wave of grief, this never means anything about me, about who I am. Doesn't mean that I'm, any less life itself, any less aware or awake, or whatever words, spiritual words, it means actually, it actually is the freedom for this woman to be fully human. Perhaps if I sorry, one more thing.
Sorry to interrupt.
It's okay. If I was trying to be more spiritual, trying to arrive at some final place where I'd be perfectly enlightened or something, that then I would be checking how this woman was what she was experiencing, making sure that it was within my idea of what she should be feeling as a more spiritual person. So I wouldn't allow myself, or I would judge myself for feeling heartbreak or pain or fear or anger, or any of those human emotions, because that would, in my mind, that would mean that then I'm not there yet. I'm not spiritual enough. I'm way too human. But actually knowing, not just as a mental concept, but really acknowledging that you are life itself, then there's nothing to lose. And in fact, actually losing a very close loved one, you really feel that as a big smack in the face, that there's intensely nothing left to lose. There's nothing really more for this. Well, I don't want to say that, but I was going to say there's nothing more for this human to lose. I don't want to jinx that. But yeah, she can be fully human, and it's all fine.
Yeah. Sorry, I just feel that so clearly and so strongly, that somehow knowing yourself to be life, it feels to me like you can also trust how life moves in any one moment, and how it shows up. And, if it's grief, it's grief. If it's anger, it's anger. If it's peace, it's peace. If it's love, it's love. It's like there's no second guessing life.
Yeah, who am I to say what should be felt right now or not? Right? Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I'm not in charge. It's, I speak now as thought, or as this woman here. She's not in charge of what she should feel. It's just this wave of sensation that's felt. It's like, oh, here we go. Woo! yeah, it's being on a roller coaster.
Mm.
And when there's no, when I'm not building a nest, you know, in whatever comes, in other words, when I'm not building some kind of identity out of it. So, you know, if there's a wave of sadness, for example, I'm not starting to say to myself, "Oh, I'm so sad. I'm going to be sad forever," and I'm so, you know, there's no identity in it. It's just, okay, sadness here,
Mm-hmm.
and it can last as long as it needs to last, and maybe I have a big cry or a little cry or whatever, and when the energy of that starts to dissipate or change into something else, then it's free changing, you know.
Yeah.
It's not that, because when we build a nest in it and create an identity, then when it it kind of starts to pass, we don't let it pass, because
Mm-hmm.
it means we have to let go of our identity, and we're not really quite ready to do that yet. But if there's no identity, these things can just pass through very easily.
Yeah.
And sometimes they take a while, and sometimes quick.
Yeah. There's then also no resistance to it, you know, whether it's because, you know, now it's been 3 years and I shouldn't be feeling grief anymore, or whether it's, oh, I'm such a spiritual person, I shouldn't be feeling this. I'm not talking about you, you know, I'm talking about general. There may be a lot of reasons why people resist feeling what they feel, you know, why people are not willing to simply allow what moves through to move through.
Yeah, well, I can speak from personal experience with this. In the first weeks, I was actually speaking with a close friend who was kind of supporting me through this, and I shared that I felt that there was some let's say identities popping up, wanting to kind of take center stage, like for example the victim. Oh, you know, this has happened to me, poor me. And I didn't want to feed that at all. I didn't, you know, it doesn't find any real place. It was clear that it's not here, but somehow it was coming in. You know, it was just there. And this friend very wisely said to me, "Why not let it be here and really?" You know, you are allowed to be a victim right now, because you are in a way a victim. You have just lost your husband. It's okay. To really, to kind of welcome that identity, and you know, that was such a helpful bit of advice, because and I might have seen that in other circumstances myself, but in the midst of all these wild emotions, you know, I in a way, I guess it was some kind of protection mechanism that was playing out for me, that, oh no, I don't want to go into that victim mode, because it will make it hurt even worse. You know? But actually, in really allowing myself to be the victim for a while, or another one, oh, poor me, I'm a single mother now. Yeah, okay, that one can also come in. But you know, there were more, all, you know, whatever identities wanted to come in, they were allowed, and still are, allowed to come in, and come in with whatever emotions they triggered, and sensations they triggered, because they were needed to, in order to allow the emotions to be felt and experienced, and to allow the energy to pass through naturally, without like, no, I better not, you know, because I don't want to feed an identity. I just let it all pass. But as soon as there was any kind of, again, building a nest somehow with an identity, it was clear that it was getting sticky, so it would move through already. So each identity was allowed to be here in a functional way, you know? So it could play out its function, process whatever needed to be processed, and then move on because it was clear that I'm not really that victim. I'm not really a single mother or a widow. That was another one. I'm a widow. You know, I'm not really any of those identities. But you know, at the same time, I'm all of those identities.
You're all of those because, you know, you used to be a wife and a lover and you know, so somehow those identities were there too, not in a sticky way either, but you know, they were being played out, weren't they?
Yeah. And when you know, I was playing a married woman or a wife or whatever, we played that fully as a play of being married. You know, that was fun role to play.
Mm-hmm.
And again, you know, you can play any role or any identity when you know that you're none of them.
Yes.
So it frees you up.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Unmani. Thank you for your just your openness and your honesty, and I feel it's so I don't know, it's just such a testimony to your being fully human and fully this that is life, that is love, that is truth, you know. I'm wondering, it may be a good time to open things up for people to ask questions. Is there anything that you would like to add to what you've shared?
Well, let's see if anyone wants to ask anything. It's fine.
Okay. So just to let you know that you're all muted. So if you would like to come in, you'll have to raise your hand or just wave at me. There's not that many videos, so you can just wave at me and let me know, and I'll unmute you. Does anybody want to come in? Yeah, Denis, hold on, I'll unmute you. Here you go, Denis. You're unmuted.
Oh, hello, Unmani.
Hello.
I've got a flu, so my voice is not very good.
It's okay, Denis. We can hear you.
Okay, and yes, it was. I think it was a shock for everybody who knew you and Robert when we learned about his death. I think you were a very intense relation, and so I'm not surprised that yes, energetically, as you said, he's somewhere not far from you, I think. Well, I'm sure you have to take new conditions of working and for your groups, and does it? I liked the way you told about. You said something like I don't know if it's the right words. It didn't change it happened nothing in the absolute, in your absolute part, but the woman has to be preserved. And thank you for this sharing. And how do you see now the evolution of your teachings? And do you still propose also in the individual sessions, or I've seen that I'm receiving still your group for your group session, and I would be, I think, interested in online session with you, in individual. I don't know when it would be possible. I'm a teacher now in Nantes, and so I don't have much time for.
Well,
Maybe I settle the details with Unmani by connecting with her.
Yeah, let me just say that Denny, I do online sessions, but if you want to arrange that, then just contact my assistant on my website. Okay.
Okay.
We can arrange that. But you asked about how do I see the evolution of my teaching. Well, I can answer that one. But I mean, of course, I don't know really, but I've noticed that it's changed. I mean, it has always been changing over the years, and so since Robert died, it's somehow changed again. It's a bit related to what I was just saying before about this woman has even less to lose now, and so it's like I feel less. Let's say I don't care. Maybe that's another way of saying I don't care or have any filter, or very little filter, maybe none. I don't know what comes out of this mouth. Whereas perhaps before I was a bit guarding this woman, not necessarily always sharing from what was personal for me, because I felt maybe it didn't feel so appropriate to share my personal feelings in publicly, and now it's like it's all coming out, and so that's changed things. I'm not necessarily always talking about my personal details in meetings, but it's somehow comes now from a more intimate place, something like that. So that's how it's evolving. Practically, help comes somehow, and so I still go on with my retreats, with my groups, my online things. Everything's going on. I found practical ways for it to go on, like tonight, putting Sky to bed, and now I have a session. So it works. Okay.
Thank you for asking that question, Denis. I was actually one of the questions that I had meant to ask, and I, didn't get round to in our conversation. So I'm glad you asked that. Did you want to add anything, or are you okay?
Yes, maybe something. Yes, uh, as you say, things are going on, and I think it's it is the proof that you have something to teach. I hope you will keep on teaching, and so we can benefit and move up to the path of more light. Voilà, thank you.
Mm. Thank you, Denis. Unmani, did you want to add anything?
No, I think unless someone else wants to ask a question.
Actually, I do want to, Deanna, I'll bring you on. I just want to go maybe a little bit deeper with this question of how has your teaching changed?
Mm-hmm.
Because that was, you know, that was one of the main questions that actually motivated, you know, offering this conversation again after a year. Because my sense was that through these experiences at a human level, you know, the teaching somehow gets, I don't know, gets clarified maybe, or has an even, I think clear is the best expression that I can get to. Just has a clearer expression, you know, there's a clarity. What I hear from you is a clarity that the personal doesn't have to be excluded, you know, it can come in when it does.
Yeah, I mean, it's not kind of clear cut that before I never expressed anything personal. I did, but there's something, I can't quite put my finger on it exactly. It's a felt sense, really, but it is related to not feeling the need to guard myself as much or protect myself. I mean, you know, as in the role of the teacher, you are exposed. You know, it's a very vulnerable position. You sit at the front of the room, and people can project all kinds of things onto you, verbally or emotionally, physically, perhaps even attack you. But certainly, you know, criticize, question. And so, you know, if you feel very vulnerable, you might find ways to protect. And it's certainly necessary at times to protect that vulnerability. So I'm not saying that I never might need to protect myself, but I guess, you know, having Robert was always in my meetings, and like I said, you know, holding the space. So I felt very protected. That if there was anyone, and it occasionally happened, very rare, but occasionally that someone did kind of somehow create a disturbance or something, that I knew he was there, somehow supporting me, and he could maybe stand up for me or do something, you know. And now that he's not there, I just feel protected. I don't know. I just I somehow it maybe because energetically he's still here, I feel even more protected than I ever did.
And yet you're saying that at a personal level, you're open to sharing more. And I know that at the
Yes,
time,
because
in the first few weeks on Facebook, you had some people kind of coming back and saying, well, if you were really, if you're really in truth, you wouldn't be feeling any grief, or there wouldn't be
yeah,
this personal stuff.
yeah,
And, so you get that kind of response, maybe not
sure.
in the meetings, but you did get.
Yes, sometimes also in the meetings.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, that especially here in India, I hold twice a week open meetings, so anybody can just drop in, and it's in my home here. So it's very exposed in a way. Anyone can just turn up. And in the first weeks that I started again holding meetings after Robert died, I still felt extremely vulnerable and tender. And most of the people who were coming to the meetings, then they knew about what had happened. But occasionally, you get someone who didn't have any idea and would come, being very critical or whatever, in that aggressive sort of attacking mode. And so somehow I've now learnt to maybe in the way of holding the space has the capacity for holding the space has grown somehow. I don't really know how to say it. Yeah, it's like there's more vulnerability and more strength. Yeah, which of course doesn't make sense, but it is like that.
Well, it makes total sense to me, because it's like the very human inbuilt function is to want to protect, right? And somehow having experienced such a huge loss, there's an opening to life in whatever it brings, in however it plays out.
Yeah,
And so the vulnerability hasn't changed at a human level, but what maybe has changed is the full embrace of it, or the fullness of the embrace of it. And when you're in the fullness of that embrace, there's strength in that. There's a kind of, well, bring it on, whatever it is, kind of.
yeah. I mean, but that, I also remember feeling like that before he died. But there's something, yeah, that's deepened, or yeah, maybe another. I could even say, well, I feel his strength in me. Yeah, we had the kind of connection that we felt very, at one together somehow. So it feels a bit like we have become one person. I mean, very much on the human level I'm talking about, like, I feel his strength. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you.
And his love is tender. Yeah, well, all of it, I've said that already. Yeah.
It's worth saying again.
Yeah, because when I was saying I feel his strength, then I felt him, and I'm like, oh no, that's not just strength. It is strength, but it's also such tenderness and vulnerability and raw humanness.
Are you good to move on to Deanna's question?
Sure.
Okay, Deanna, I'm going to unmute you. Here you are.
Hi.
Hi.
My question has to do with anger, and currently I have a living situation that is not what I would choose. I would always choose an environment that's organized and spacious and light. And life seems to be giving me this lesson right now where I'm in a position where it doesn't appear that I have very much freedom, and it doesn't appear that I have very much support around me in the physical. And what's happening is it's bringing up for me some really core issues around respect and abandonment and um, uh, not having the freedom to express myself. And this anger that's coming with it is, it feels really primal. It feels like something, again, just very core. And I would love any guidance you have on how to express that, because what I have found is that even though it is this very primal anger and I want to be able to release it, I have been in some situations, it's come out where I've been inharmonious or not nice to my husband, and it actually has nothing to do with him. And so I'm wondering if you have any tips on how to let that anger, or it really feels like a disappointment in not being okay with the way things are. But it also seems to kind of tap me into a real core wound, because this is a bigger anger than I've ever had before. That I haven't felt this kind of anger in many, many years. And so I know that it needs to come up, but at the same time, I want it to come up harmoniously.
Anger doesn't necessarily come up how you'd like it to come up.
Well, maybe in
and
a way where
not harmoniously.
then maybe in a way where I'm not projecting it onto others.
Yeah. Well, great that you want to take responsibility for it, and but yeah, it's a wild energy, so it may not do as it's told. But yeah, if you can find some healthy outlet for it, then perhaps less of it will be projected onto people close to you. So yeah, I mean, there are places where you can go to kick and scream and punch pillows and do some catharsis. You can do what I was saying, painting and whacking paint down on a big piece of cardboard. That was fun and a good expression of anger. Yeah, there are lots of ways. I mean, I'm sure you can find a healthy outlet, but when you're taking responsibility for it, then yeah, you find it some martial arts or
Well, just to give you a little more background, I'm currently traveling, living in a small motorhome with my husband, and we're stuck in the snow, snowed in, where even taking a walk is risky because of icy conditions. So the outside world really has me in this little bubble where even expressing myself, or even having my own space it seems to be, for whatever reason, limited right now.
Well, this will create a kind of pressure cooker, huh?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. If there's nobody else around and no one else to express this anger towards, then maybe he's got to, he's going to be the one to receive it. Huh? But if you can take a walk and go and scream in the forest or something, then that'd be good. And if you can express some anger towards your husband occasionally, well, okay, that's part of love, part of relating. But sometimes we get angry with each other. You don't want to be endlessly going at him, but it's it's not something to be excluded either. Love doesn't, or relating doesn't have to be harmonious all the time.
And it's actually not, the anger is not me being angry at him, it's me being angry at my situation or life and sharing with him. I'm really unhappy, or I'm really angry about this, and that. It's actually not him. It's like I'm not angry at him, but anyway, it's a difficult. I think it might also be because it's so big and I'm not used to that, and it's actually a little bit scary, like, wow, that's in me, and knowing how to how to be okay with that.
Yeah. Well, it as I said, it's a powerful, wild energy. It's life force, actually. That's what it is. If we take the label of anger off, it's life energy, and you feel it throughout your body. And if you can move your body and shake it and express it also in movement, whatever wild movements your body needs to make, that also feels really good,
Yeah.
And to see it not as a negative thing, but this is life energy, and it's great that it's coming up so strong. It's only when you suppress it and you think that it shouldn't be expressed, or shouldn't be here, shouldn't be felt, that then it wants to come out in a big explosion and project on people around you. But if you're acknowledging it, accepting it for yourself, taking responsibility for it, then it can be here, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it's out of control. You're acknowledging the nature of life, that it is out of control.
Okay.
Can I add something to this?
Please.
Diana, my sense is that, there's an old book by Jack Cornfield called After the Ecstasy, the Laundry.
Yeah, there's a lot of...
Like you're doing a little bit of laundry, there's just, this, especially as we become more awake and we're more able to just be here with whatever is there. There's so much stuff that has been kind of shut up inside, that just needs to move. And yeah, some of it's scary, it's scary and it's force and it's kind of power, and but you're here for this, and I'm sure that if you explain to your husband that this is not really about him, but you just need to express that anger, find ways of letting it express through you. Or you find, like Unmani said, you find spaces that are maybe more contained where you can express it. Like, you go out and you shovel snow and you scream, like if you're willing for it to move through and just express, you will find ways that are okay and that are not too hurtful, even if sometimes your husband is going to take the part of it, be exposed to part of it. You can trust that whatever is moving through, just like for Unmani, if the grief shows up at, or the loss shows up at anger, you know, it's anger that has to be trusted.
Thank you, Deanna.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for bringing this up.
Thanks, Grace.
And I'm just thinking there's maybe time for one more question if anybody else wants to ask a question. Or Deanna, did you want to come back to Unmani? No? Okay. Yeah. Marie Odile, did you want to ask a question? No. Okay. Okay. Doesn't look like anybody else wants to ask a question. So Unmani, I'm just going to ask you whether, you know, there's anything that you would like to add to what's been said.
I'm getting a little tired because it's getting late for me, but yeah. So you might, if yeah, you might need to ask me something. I can't think of what needs to be added.
Actually, you know, no, and we don't have to go on for 1.5 hours. You know, if you're tired, we can stop here. I feel very complete about what's been shared and what's been said, so I'd be happy to let you go, although it's lovely to be with you.
Just enjoying seeing where Maria Dill is. She's on a bus or something. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us on the bus.
Well, thank you for joining us, Unmani. Thank you for you know, just being willing to be so open and so vulnerable in your sharing. I really feel you know, it's such a gift. It's such a precious gift, and you know, it's such a contribution to the satsang scene also, you know, which can be so where teachers can just be so remote and so immersed in truth that their own being just doesn't get, their own humanity doesn't get shared. But my sense is that that's really the edge of where people are at, you know, the edge that people need to also hear that that's where maturing and growth and no, that's not the right words, where openness is possible and honesty and fullness. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but it is also a maturity in a way. I mean, those words also can fit. You know, maybe that is something to add, that actually it's a phase that many people, and myself included, had to go through, of let's say acknowledging the absolute that we really are, and then forming some kind of identity there. And this identity acts as like a protection mechanism from not feeling the intensity of life, especially the discomfort of life. And eventually, whether it's some tragedy or a change, or or just gradual seeing that somehow you've got to come down to the ground, and include this human just as he or she is, whether you like it or not, and it may not always be, it may not fit your spiritual ideas about how you should be experiencing life if you are, into spirituality or non-duality or satsang. Often when we hear the beautiful satsang concepts, words, we try to become those qualities, and that means that we end up endlessly trying to fix the person and trying to make this person somehow perfect, and perfect according to the qualities that only our true nature can be. This person, this human, will never be always loving, always peaceful, always free, always, all these beautiful things. The person is not that. It's you as your true nature, as life itself. You are always that, but this person is free to be a mess. And that freedom to be a mess is such a relief. That is such freedom. I mean, it's, as soon as I acknowledge that, this body can kind of go, so I don't have to fit in this spiritual box that you've been forcing me to fit into all this time. I can break free and just go bleh, just be a mess and cry or scream or be angry or be unharmonious, and get it all wrong, be a failure, just not be spiritual, because my true nature is everything that I try to become. My true nature is that already. And my true nature doesn't need me to try to do it or become it or remember it. It is already. So then what's left is this human. And the play of this human is fascinating. I mean, it's another wave of this and another wave of that. And it goes on and on.
Thank you.
Endless maturing.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you so much. That's a beautiful way to end. I love that. So thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Unmani, for joining us from India in your beautiful
Thank you,
office.
Grace.
Yeah, thank you to me. Yeah, that seems to be one of the ways that this life plays out, is in offering these things. So I just keep doing what comes to do,
Great that you do.
Yeah.
Nice to chat with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, wonderful to have you share with us, Unmani. So just to let you know, the next conversation is going to be next week, next Sunday, with Joan Tollefson on Cancer as an Awakening Journey. And if you'd like to find out other details about other conversations, you can go to the website www.living-from-love.com, and you'll see everything that's on the program listed there. So thank you for joining us. Thank you, Unmani. Thank you to everybody. Thank you for your beautiful questions.
Thank you.
And we'll see you again soon.
Okay. Bye.